Hey there! Are you planning a sailing charter or a voyage of a lifetime to a location of your dreams, like the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, or even the South Pacific? Are you planning this trip with others, some or all of whom you don't know yet? Okay then. It's time to take an objective look at what you could be getting into. The truth is, it will either be a memorable trip that creates lifelong friends, or it can be a trip to hell, despite being on the most spectacular yacht and venue imaginable. What we'll talk about in this video could be the key difference. Hi, this is Captain Tom again. I'm a United States Coast Guard MMC, Master Mariner Captain. I've been a skipper of sailing boats from dinghies up to 70 feet and sailed on almost every ocean. I've been a boat owner, charter master, bareboat charter qualifier, sailing instructor, and have assisted in hundreds of sailors in embryo achieve their dreams. Today we're going to talk about what to watch for to keep that trip of a lifetime as that memorable experience that you'll cherish forever, and not as an expensive trip to hell that you'll want to forget as soon as possible. While there are many aspects that affect this, I want to focus this particular video on who you crew or sail with. And I'm also focusing it on charter voyages. But you could apply it to a Go Sailing or SeaPeople.com delivery, and I'll leave the links to those sites for those in the details, or an offshore race as well. In those cases, it's more of you choosing to join the crew or not, rather than you filtering the crew you want. Now, given that the boat you charter is from a reputable firm or owner, you'll find that your fellow crew members are the single most important quality of the trip. Often groups will increase their size to a point so that they can have both the comfort of a larger boat and better spread the cost of hiring a captain that knows the waters, both from a navigational and sailing venue standpoint. As a former charter master and charter boat qualifier, this is a great idea. So it will not only give you more peace of mind overall, but more importantly allows you to see the sailing venue from someone who really knows it well and leave the often nerve-wracking uncertainties about moorings, ports of call slips, all the way down to where to eat out ashore, to a local that knows the ropes and has the connections. It's usually a multiplier to the experience, not just an incremental cost one. In fact, when we as charter masters see a prospective charterer come to an unfamiliar water and want to immediately strike out on their own in a big boat, even if they have some credentials, that in and of itself is usually a huge red flag. But I digress. That's for another video. But first, if you like this content, please punch on that subscribe and like button and set the notification bell so you get all of the future content that I'll put out about this and other sailing topics. And thanks to YouTube, this is all for free. Got it punched? Okay, let's dig into this intriguing subject. Now, from my own experiences, I've had voyages where at the end, even if it was a grueling ocean passage, I ask myself, what? It's over already? With those, I so enjoyed the combination of boat and crew that the time just seems to pass like lightning. The crew gets along well, expectations are met, and everyone is happy and safe. However, I've been on others where I just can't get off the boat fast enough. Quibbling, or not responsible, or gaslighting crew members make even the best sailing venue totally not worth it. And the reality is that the bigger the crew, the bigger the chance that there's just a bad apple or two. I don't want this to happen to all of the sacrifices you've made for your charter of a lifetime. So let's look at 4 crew types that I've come across that you really want to prevent from being aboard with. We'll also chat about how to pick them out before you commit to save you the grief. On all these names, they're entirely fictitious. So, former students, don't worry about getting pegged. All right, number 1. Never good enough Nellie. Nellie is never happy with much and lets everyone know it. Things like accommodations, bunks, food or music, temperature of the cabin, where to visit or how long, watches and shifts or chores on the boat. And worse yet, she will always look for allies to change the planning of the trip in her favor and thus be a constant burden to everyone else. Sometimes the best moments of a trip are spontaneous, like, hey, let's go do this. But Nellie's control over the situation will often eliminate those memorable moments forever. And more often than not, her imperatives will end up drastically increasing the cost of the trip, which is a downer for the rest of the crew, which really doesn't want to go along with them anyway. Now, signs that a never good enough Nellie is lurking to get on your crew. So while in the planning meetings, statements that indicate that they are specially entitled to something, or they want some repeated special personal attention, or repeatedly interrupt the discussion, or makes fun of people who are trying to keep a trip within a budget as cheap. So I think all of us have a never good enough Nellie, or let's be fair, Nathan, in our real world as well. So number 2 is deadbeat Dan. Dan is enthusiastic about the trip, but in reality couldn't afford it at the get-go and always looks to piggyback on others' generosity as much as possible, whether they know or agree to it or not. Often last second or late about contributions to the group, the "I'll pay you back later" promise gets burdensome on the crew. And unfortunately, Dan is not usually the first one to shrink from an expensive outing. Now, when this happens, then it can cause tension in the group because they know that this cost could be coming their way as well. This only makes the drain that Dan has on the crew worse. Or the alternative is that the group doesn't do desired activities simply because of the risk of accepting costs from Dan. Some may feel that Dan, however, is necessary because of his experience, or that he's just a really nice guy that's just a little down on his luck. Well, that's cool. For members of the crew that still want to take Dan as a charity case, make sure that these contributors, possibly a subset of the crew and maybe even just one person, understands that expectation clearly and accepts the responsibility, possibly even in writing, and acknowledges this to the group. It's much better to set this expectation early to keep things from getting frayed. Now, signs that a deadbeat Dan is lurking to get on your crew is that, 1, he's late with pre-trip deposits, or he's absent or quiet at pre-trip planning events or conversation threads, especially when costs are discussed. This is the plausible deniability ploy. Now, how to avoid or manage Dans. Have hard deposit dates and a money slush fund that must be pre-funded by him or his agreed supporters. It is best to get everything squared up before any charter company deposit deadlines are arrived at, so that if Dan drops off, there's still time to replace him or make a strategic change to the charter. Our next character is Grimy George. So, in a small living space, which is what even a large yacht still is, George persists in not cleaning up after himself or contributing to the crew's overall cleanliness or personal habits or chores. This leads to an accelerated loss of crew morale. George is a hard one to root out if planning meetings are only done remotely. If you do get a grimy George, though, this is tough. I've had one aboard who literally brought cockroaches on with him. The only way that I know of to head this off is to try to know your crew personally ahead of the time, and also have a written statement that everyone buys into before the charter. This would have items that are seemingly as trivial as using plastic bags for dirty laundry, assignments for cleaning up after onboard meals, types of meals that can be made between regular hot meal times, location and isolation of personal items during the voyage, and so on. The longer the voyage and the farther from land, the more critical this becomes. My advice is to make sure to discuss this in detail and have everyone agree. Assume nothing. Remember, you may have people who have never been offshore in a sailboat. The next one, number 4, is a know-it-all Ned. He may come off as an experienced and initially obsequious person, but secretly he has a God complex. He'll do things his own way, even against the advice of the charter company or skipper, and belittle anyone who stands in his way. Also know that he tends to disavow any damage that he causes, and places the blame on others, and will pass it on to the innocent charter leader. So signs that there's a know-it-all Ned lurking. Someone who repeatedly and at every opportunity wants to let the group know how experienced he is. Dismisses safety protocols as unnecessary or wrong, such as safety harnesses and so on. Or that he denigrates the charter company or hired skipper. In one case in my past, a know-it-all Ned convinced his crew to sail well beyond the charter limit agreed in the contract. The result was that the boat went hard aground and took on water, and had to be powered into a harbor in another country. I had to go get the boat and deliver it about 100 nautical miles with significant keel leak the entire way. Now the know-it-all Ned thought that he was an expert in international maritime law, and they could just walk away and be responsible only for the security deposit, and that's the insurance deductible. Wrong. Now, I don't want to scare new charterers here. In fact, just the opposite. I want new charters to have some of the best experiences of their lifetime. The vast majority of charters are wonderful experiences for all. Now note that I didn't include crew members who are not skilled sailors, but at least are honest about it up front. This is not about whether someone is skilled or experienced or not. This is about the honesty of the prospective crew member and whether that level of honesty meets your mutual expectation as the charter leader or skipper. So I hope that this helps you when you're putting together your dream charter. There is certainly more than the boat involved. So thanks for watching, and if you haven't already and liked this content, please punch that subscribe and like button and set the notifications so you get all the others. So until then, dream on for that charter and make it yours.